Orlin and the dragon's quest for balance. The sun had barely begun to rise, casting long, soft shadows over the village of Blackstone Vale when Orlin arrived. His journey from the ancient forest had been long and filled with reflection, but the owl's words still echoed in his mind. He was no longer the young wizard eager to prove himself, but one who now understood the value of patience, wisdom, and most of all, balance. But when he saw the smoke rising in the distance, he knew that wisdom alone would not be enough to resolve the problem before him. His path had brought him here, to this village on the edge of the great untamed wilderness. Villagers had sent for him, pleading for help. A dragon, something Orlin could hardly believe, had been terrorizing Blackstone Vale, destroying crops, burning homes, and leaving a wake of destruction in its path. Orlin tightened his grip on the crystal, the record-keeper markings still glowing softly. The crystal had been a constant companion since he'd found it in the forest, and its wisdom had helped him grow, but he wasn't sure if it held the answers for the troubles ahead. Dragons were creatures of ancient magic, far beyond the reach of most wizards. Still, Orlin had vowed to wield his knowledge carefully, with love and understanding, and he would not abandon the people of Blackstone Vale. As he entered the village square, a small group of townsfolk approached him, their faces a mix of desperation and fear. A tall, bearded man stepped forward, his clothes singed and torn. "Wizard," the man said, his voice gruff but urgent, "thank the gods you've come. A dragon. It's been ravaging our town for days. It's not just the fires. It's the terror it brings, the sense that it could come back at any moment. We don't know what to do. Will you help us?" Orlin took a moment to study the man's eyes, tired, haunted. He could sense the fear in the village, and while he understood the devastation a creature like a dragon could bring, he was not one to act rashly. "I'll help," Orlin said, his voice calm but firm. "But first I need to understand the situation. Tell me more about this dragon. Where has it been attacking, and why?" The man looked over his shoulder, as if he were afraid the dragon might appear at any moment. "It came from the mountains to the north. No one knows why. It's never been seen around here before. But now, it seems angered. The dragon is not just attacking, it's destroying everything in its path. Some say it's been hurt, that it's looking for something." Orlin nodded thoughtfully, his hand still wrapped around the crystal. A dragon's behavior, especially one that sought destruction, could often be the result of deep pain or anger, emotions that even a creature of such power could not escape. If it was truly wounded or seeking something, he would have to find a way to communicate with it, to understand its pain. "I will investigate," Orlin said, "but you must give me some time. If this dragon is in pain, it will not be solved with violence." The townsfolk exchanged uncertain glances but nodded in agreement. They had no other choice but to trust the wizard. Orlin turned toward the northern mountains where the dragon was said to reside and began his journey up the rocky path. As he walked, the wind whispered through the trees, and the land seemed heavy with anticipation. The path grew steeper, the air colder. After several hours, Orlin found himself at the base of a towering cliff, where the mountain began to rise sharply into jagged peaks. It was here, he suspected, that the dragon would have made its lair. He continued, reaching a plateau near the top. As dusk fell, the sound of distant roars echoed through the mountains. The vibrations reverberated in Orlin's bones, a sound of raw power, frustration, and something else, grief. He knew then that he was not too late. The dragon was nearby. He crept quietly, his senses alert. The cliffside opened into a vast, rocky gorge, the edges sharp and dangerous. And there, perched atop a high outcrop, was the dragon. It was a magnificent creature, its scales a shimmering iridescent black, gleaming like polished obsidian under the fading light. But despite its beauty, there was an unmistakable sadness in its posture. The dragon's wings were folded against its body as it rested, its massive head bowed low, as though burdened by something far greater than mere physical pain. Orlin could see signs of injury. Deep gashes along the creature's side, burns that looked recent, and the remains of what appeared to be old scars. The wizard took a deep breath and approached carefully, not wanting to startle the beast. Holding the crystal in both hands, he felt the subtle power it emanated, urging him toward the dragon. Orlin had never faced a creature of this scale before, but he knew he could not approach this as an enemy. Great dragon, Orlin called out softly, his voice carrying on the cool wind. I come not to fight, but to listen. The dragon's head snapped up, its golden eyes piercing the night with a fierce intensity. But there was something else in those eyes, an ancient sorrow, a weariness that Orlin could almost touch. The beast's gaze softened slightly, and after a long pause it spoke, its voice like thunder rolling through the gorge. You are the one who holds the crystal, it rumbled, its voice deep and resonant, the one who seeks wisdom. I am, Orlin replied, his heart steady but his mind racing. I seek to understand your pain, to help you. Why do you destroy the village? What has caused you such anger? The dragon's eyes seemed to darken. I seek what was taken from me. My treasure, my hoard. It is gone, stolen by thieves who do not understand the power they have stolen from me. My hoard is not just gold, wizard. It is the memories of my kind, the knowledge of ages, the history of my people. Orlin felt a surge of understanding. The dragon's grief was not just the loss of its wealth, but the loss of its very identity, the history that had been with it for centuries. He stepped forward, the crystal glowing brightly in his hands. I understand, Orlin said gently, but destroying the town will not bring back what you've lost. Let me help you find your treasure, and I will help you reclaim what was stolen. But you must stop your attacks on the village. They are innocent. The dragon's eyes searched Orlin's face for a long moment, as if considering the wizard's words. Then, with a low, reluctant growl, it spoke. Very well, but you must promise me this. Find my treasure, wizard, and return it to me. Then I will leave the village in peace. I swear it, Orlin said, his voice resolute. The dragon's head lowered, and for the first time it seemed to relax, the tension easing from its form. Then I will wait, it said, its voice softer now, almost mournful. Orlin bowed his head and turned to leave, the crystal glowing brightly in his hands. He had much to do, but for the first time since his journey began, he felt certain of his path. The dragon's pain was not one of malice, but of loss, and it was up to him to help heal that wound. As Orlin descended the mountain, he knew the real challenge lay ahead, finding the thieves who had stolen the dragon's treasure and restoring the balance that had been broken. But he was ready. The crystal, the wisdom of the owl, and the power of his own heart would guide him. The village of Blackstone Vale would soon be free of the dragon's fury if Orlin could fulfill the promise he had made.